Gravity Lab Day 1. If you missed today or if you got a little lost, this video is going to help you. I'm just going to go through the lab. I'm going to read the questions and kind of go through what you need to. So, second slide here, you're going to go to this link. Now, there's been a couple issues with this link. What you're going to do is you're going to click on the link. You're going to open up this little drop down. It might show up with this. You're going to hit Get Adobe Flash Player. And if it says allow, you're going to click allow. And what that's going to do is that's going to take you to this simulation. Now, if it does not go to allow, so if I go to this link here, I click on this, and it does not have the allow button, okay, you cannot open the link. It has to do with what's called Adobe Flash Player. Your computer probably doesn't have it or doesn't have the capabilities of having it. So, with that being said, what you can do is you can just watch my screen and see kind of what the simulation is doing. Okay, so if you can't get it open, that's okay. I'm going to run through the whole thing so you can watch and answer all the questions. So we're going to use the simulator to observe how mass affects the orbit of planets around a sun and answer some questions. All of the directions are on the following slides next to each question. Okay. All right. So on the bottom left, this is the simulation directions. These are the questions. So when you answer the questions, you're just going to click in the box. You can delete all of this and then type your answer. Okay. So I'm going to read through the directions. I'm going to run through the simulation, and then I'm going to read and talk about the questions. Okay. So on the simulation, on the bottom left, we're going to click the button to choose 4 for the number of bodies. So on my simulation, I'm going to click 4, and that changes this to 4 planets or bodies. I'm going to click start and run the simulation. Then I'm going to click stop when the purple planet gets back to where it started. And then I'm going to stop there because there's a line. Now, what I'm looking for is I want to give 2 observations about the orbital paths of the objects. So when I hit start, you notice these lines here. Those are the orbital paths. Okay, so I'm going to give 2 observations. It doesn't matter what 2 observations you give. They can be anything you want, but you're going to type them in these 2 boxes. So watch this. I'm going to start it. It's going to roll like this. I'm going to stop it when the purple one gets all the way back to where it started, right there. Okay? Make 2 observations about the orbital paths. I'm going to run through it one more time for you so you can watch it happen. There it goes. The purple one's going around the yellow one. The green one's going around the yellow one, and stop. Okay? What you're going to do now is pause the video on the simulation. You're going to give 2 observations for the orbital path. So pause the video right now and make your 2 observations. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the traces. Okay, so I'm going to reset this. I'm going to turn off traces. And you're going to answer 2 questions here. What is the blue object actually going around? And what would we call it? Not like a name, but what type of object is it? And I'll kind of help you with that when we go through it. So here we go. Watch the blue object here. Boom. There's no traces. Ooh. Which object is the blue one actually going around? Type that in your box. And what would we call it? I want you to pretend that the yellow thing is the sun and the purple planet is Earth. So what would we call the blue thing? Pause the video, answer that question. All right, let's go to the next slide. We're going to click reset and turn the traces back on. So I'm going to hit reset. I'm going to turn the traces back on. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the mass. Okay, so we're going to change the mass of the yellow sun to 400. So I'm going to go here, the yellow object, 400. Okay, and I'm going to click start, and then I'm going to click stop when the purple one gets all the way back to where it started. Now what you're going to do is you're going to make an observation. How does the orbit change for each object? So what I'll show you both of them. So actually, let me do that right now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go like this. Then I'm going to go like this. Go like this. My solar system. This. Okay. So on the left, this is the original one. Okay, so on the left here, this is the original one. I'm going to stop it right here. Okay, that's the one we started with. Now what I'm going to do on the right one is I'm going to change the sun to 400. And let's see what happens. Now, what's different about each, object? You're going to say, okay, what's different about the purple object? What's different about the blue object? And what's different about the green object? Okay, so pause the video, make an observation for each of them on your questions. Here's the old one on the left. Here's the new one on the right. So go ahead and pause the video. Okay. Now we're going to go to the next slide. Click reset on your simulation, which I did here. Change the mass of the yellow one to 175. 175. And yours might say 150. That's okay. I changed it to 175. So just kind of go with what I'm doing here. You're going to click start and then stop when the purple one gets all the way around. Okay. And what we're going to do is if the mass of the sun were smaller, how would the orbits change? So for the first box, how are they different? How are the orbits different? And then for the second box, if the mass of the sun is smaller, how would the sun's own orbit change? So if you notice on here, the sun actually goes around in a little tiny orbit. What's it going to do on this one? Let's take a look. Here's our original one on the left. Here's our new one. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Look at that purple one. Look how far out that's going. What's the sun doing here? Huh. Interesting. I'm going to stop it right now. Okay. What's different? And you can be specific. You can pick the purple one. What's different about the purple one? Okay. You're going to type that answer in the first box. And then the second box is what's different about the yellow object. Pause the video. Answer that question. Okay. Now, our last one. This one actually doesn't have anything to do with the simulation. It's how does changing the mass of a planet or object affect its gravity? Well, if you answer the questions on slide 4, we made the mass larger. So what happened to the orbits? On slide number 5, we made the mass smaller. So what happened to the orbits? Well, if the orbits got smaller, did the gravity of the yellow object increase or decrease? If the orbit got bigger, did the gravity of the yellow object decrease or increase? Think about this. If I got bigger, could I pull more into me or could I pull less? I'm not as strong. Okay, so think about that question. You're going to answer this question right here. Type your answer here. When you're done, I want you to click turn in the assignment and rewind if you need anything.